all, and thank you for a good introduction. So before I start my presentation, I just want to start with my story. So I have been working in the IT sector. I come from the fisherman background. So we had 3 vessels operating from Munambam. So what happened was, because I'm a techie guy, so whenever I come for holidays, I go for deep sea fishing with my own vessels, with my own brother. So because I was traveling global countries, I could see a difference or what was lacking. So when we started the project, the 3 visions, the statement, safety, traceability, and sustainability. So if you look at the 3 words, I think now in a lot of conferences we are hearing about these words. But actually, when we started this company, it was in our heart, right? The next thing, so what is Vodaku? Because many times people get confused. So some people ask us, is it a Japanese word or anything? It's not a Japanese word, it's a Malayalam word. So Vodaku in Malayalam, maybe people from Kerala will know, it's like conflict that between 2 people. When I was sailing with my brother, so he always, they use this walkie-talkie, keep talking, and I hear this word, Vodaku, Vodaku. So eventually I understood. If you look at that picture, that is the bottom of the rock, right? And that's very dangerous for us because we lose money there. But we also make money from there because there's a lot of fish from there. So what happens is when the net goes and snags it and it gets damaged. So we calculated that almost in my own vessels, we were losing around 3 to 4 lakhs per year on repairs. Now imagine when these nets become ghost net, which is also another sustainability problem. So our basic word, the problem statement of our company was Vodaku, which was named after that very word. The founders, if you look at, I have 21 years of IT experience. And my brother, who is a crew, who has got 25 years in the fishing industry. Now, so the initial stage was to fix our own problem. There was no big things or nothing. It was I had 3 vessels. I wanted to make sure that I reduce my cost. But eventually what happened was when I started to talk with various people, various conferences, I understood the problem is not related to the fishermen, but it is much bigger scale. It expands. So wherever I go, I hear traceability, sustainability, a lot of issues going on. So eventually we narrowed it down and we figured out, you have technology. If I take traceability, you have technology from land to processing. You have every cold chain, nothing is missing, you have. And you have a lot of scientific communities working on it, they have all the technology, nothing here. But actually what was missing was the data that was happening at the sea. So there are 2 elements. One is sea to the shore, and from shore to the land, right? There are 2 pieces. So you have everything from land to the phrase. You have traceability, everything fantastic. But we don't have data from sea to the shore. So that was the bigger problem that we identified, right? So now if you take traceability, you need cash level data, and India is struggling. Like as first speaker was mentioning, we don't have a product certified from India, the sashimi product, because we don't have certification. And we are struggling for the European market. So now it was optional, but now it is a compliance requirement. We have no other choice, we have to do it. And India is so complex, putting technology in the hands of the fishermen is so complex. So that is where we come into the picture. So if you take the conservation, we talk about sustainability, but how much fishing effort has gone into the sea, we don't have data, right? We need to get actual data from the real people, right? And compliance, the big challenge right now is IUU fishing. How am I going to make sure that I follow the compliance from the European market, right? We have to prove that we are not doing illegal fishing, and most of the Indian fishermen don't do it, but where is the data? At the end of the day, your data speaks, nothing else. And then you have, if you go to the ground level realities, you have a lot of fisheries department. Probably sir was mentioning that you cannot manage by alone. You have to work with the stakeholders. You can't do it government cannot do it, right? So then there is a problem with safety. There is an accident in the sea. There is so much incident happening here. And I have seen in Kanyakumari, they come and fight. And government has no clue what to do it, right? So they have to scratch the head. So that's another big problem, right? So what we designed to solve our own problem, which was a marine navigation system, That became the foundational platform for the data collection. So people who may not understand the marine navigation system is basically when you are driving a car, you use a system. So initially in India, when you are driving a vessel, that you use a system. So Indian fishermen had their own traditional knowledge, but I'll come back to that. It was very simple. We have a hardware. You connect with the tablets, the smartphone, whatever the gadget you love, because India is again, you have small vessel, bigger vessel, so many variations. You cannot control one solution fits for all. It's not going to happen. Allow the stakeholders to decide what they want. So we created software and hardware, the kind of data collected. Every second we had GPS log. Automatically we detect the fishing activities, which basically gives you the CT and KD elements for the traceability and fishing efforts. Now you have to understand this solution is not meant for compliance or traceability, nothing. It was meant for its own benefit. How I benefit as a fisherman? I want to make sure how my vessel is operating with the fuel. That is my problem. That is not your problem. So I want to make sure I keep tracking every event so that when I come to the shore, I can compare with my other vessels where I am, right? So I keep, that's the cap. Then I also want to understand my skill, that like sir was mentioning, like these lack skills, like deep sea skill is not there. We are giving a vessel, but how will the guy go to a deep sea without having a technology, without having the communication skills? So, and then you cannot go and give a new technology to the fishermen because they are inbuilt with the traditional knowledge. So we have to factor in the traditional knowledge. Whatever they are traditional, you convert into technology platform so that they can go for that, right? And then you have the compliance, right? If you go and give to the fisherman with all the gadgets, he is not going to do it. But what we did was, his need was a navigation system that he wants. But the data we collected as a byproduct of the fishing, which becomes the compliance for all the activities that is needed, right? So this is a sample trip, right? What happened is, like I am going here, 72 hours I fished, I have, 240 nautical I traveled, 14 hulls I had done, and my vessel was stopping there. Now traceability score, what is that? Like we talk about traceability, but what exactly fisherman understands, right? He is not going to understand anything. So we tell them, traceability score is nothing but you keep your device on 100%. If you are turning your device on 100%, then your traceability score is 100%. Simple, no complexity. That's what he cares. He doesn't care about what the market demands. That's your problem, right? And then zone compliance. Now we talk about 5 nautical to how much fishing are happening to 5 nautical mile, 10 to 20 mile, 30 to. We don't have data, right? So zone compliance will tell you, you give a bigger vessel, the guy is going on fishing the near zone. There is no point, right? So technology has to give him a position where it adds value to him. Now, this is the automated log sheet generated. It is not a log sheet or electronic navigation data set without any manual intervention. And this is very cool. This is where we have a problem. If you give a mobile app, there are thousands of mobile apps for the fishermen. They are already confused. And if you ask them to select the date, he is not going to do it because it is hard for him. So what we did was, you don't do anything. You do your work. The rest of the data is collected automatically, which is again adding value to him. That's the key. So what you get is, you get your zone compliance, fishing efforts. I want, as a crew, I want to understand how much time I'm fishing, how much time I'm searching, how I'm going to reduce the time. That is what the data that is needed for the conservation, right? So, but as a crew, I had to build my skills. So that's my requirement. Fuel efficiency. That's a big problem we are going through. We spend so much money. Every trip we spend 5 lakhs, 4 lakhs for fuel. So if I'm able to reduce my fuel, that's going to impact. The other part, like whether you're hauling, searching, that is the elements that is required for CTA without any manual intervention. There is no logbook, nothing in it. It's automatically collected, right? And then, of course, I want to prove I'm a genuine fisherman. That's what this data said. And of course, there is a requirement that you have to do a digital signature for the cash certification. Yes, we have done that. Actually, we have already done a pilot. So these are our hardware. So in India, because when you are going for India, you have a small vessel which goes for 10 hours. There's a bigger vessel. So a small vessel, in India, we have the power problem, right? In a small vessel, they cannot get a power source. So then our gadget is designed for a small scale vessel. then, it can be connected with, your tablet or smartphone. Then we have also designed the marine AS, which is basically helps in ship accidents, right? And then various hardware. So you have to understand that you cannot fit a fisherman in one single box. No. He will buy this one. He can spend affordable because he can connect camera for his own vessels, and then he can connect sensor. And then eventually we are looking at connecting the temperature from the vessel, putting the data collected. That's for the traceability. That's our vision. But that will happen. So, look at how different fishermen, right? 99% of the fishermen use tablet. Why I am saying is that it is not about the price. It is about the value that is created. If you are creating a value, he will invest, right? So, very rarely people use smartphone. They use the tablet. And we are selling that big monitor, 21-inch touch. It's high demand. Now, I have seen this, lot of sustainable projects throughout the world. And I have traveled quite a bit. The problem, we are talking about sustainability, but the very project that we implement is not sustainable. The reason behind is that it always starts with a pilot, some fund, then it runs for 2 to 3 years, then funding ends, then the system dies. But what we believe is the Odaku model. Fisherman has to pay for his service, right? Because we are solving his problem. So when we solve his problem, he is paying for his cost. And then what happens is he maintains it and it runs indefinitely. It doesn't require any external funding. And I will tell you how this tracking data is really helpful, because we are always looking at sustainable traceability. Forget about that. That's your world. But in my world, which is fisherman world, how I am making use of the voyage data? The first thing is we are running this fleet tracking, vessel tracking data for 6 years in Kanyakumari. As Sir was mentioning, co-management is the very, very best way. Paid by fishermen, funded by fishermen, run by fishermen. Government monitors. That is the sustainable way countries like India, because you can't control, right? When you give the involve the ecosystem, which was almost said by everybody, right? Stakeholder of the fishermen, give them the high priority. The program will run. Otherwise, it will not run. Yeah. So this was the Kanyakumari program we did, where 300%. The problem was they always fighting with the different types of people. So fishery department had a control monitor. They tracked it, fixed the problem. So this is a sample data, one data, which is basically your sustainable data, where you have fished. Like red is the fishing area, blue is the running area. Now this same data became a traceability pilot, right? So I have a QR code. I was shipping a fish from India to there. Now I can also measure how I am fishing, what is my trip level, every data it will help me. The second data, there was a ship accident, the ship hit and run. The fisherman was my customer. He came back, he shared the data on the cloud to the shipping company that this is the time, this is the location my vessel was hit by your ship. Look at your AS log. Then the shipping company looked at the AS was off, the problem is on their side, they settled the compensation 40 lakhs in 20 days, no court, nothing needed. This is how empowering a fisherman data means the impact, right? So when he does that, obviously every fisherman came and how do I do that? I said just keep the device on. So that's the power of data when you are empowering the people. The third one is like crew, right? One day in the Munamba, 5 o'clock morning, there was a small accident. This traditional fisherman and the fellow said the boat name is St. Joseph. Now in Munamba, St. Joseph there are 10 boats. Now whom do I go and catch? Government has no clue. The police said, okay, you come 2 of us. You did it. The guy said, no, where's the proof? He took the tablet and showed at this time at 5 o'clock, I was 20 nauticals away from their location. When police said, confirmed, closed, case is closed. So that was like, having impact on them. So I go back to my story. 10 years back when I was traveling in a train, the fisherman always carries a lot of bags, notebooks and everything. But now when I go, he's carrying a tablet, which is a huge impact. So the traditional knowledge has been converted into paper-based to a digital. So this is the impact, right? Any solution you get, it has to impact the community. This is a letter which I want, written by the hand of the fisherman. So he said, see, I'm happy with your system. I'm having earnings and everything. But apart from income and everything, he mentioned that it gives me a confidence I am a fisherman. So that is where Sir was mentioning, like fishermen are going away. How do you bring back? The traditional knowledge and everything is going with my father. But if you want them to back, you have to provide a system and solution which is sustainable. So thank you for the time.